to do tonight, I want to talk in stages. And so this is a great time or a great opportunity here to just talk about your singleness journey, because the thing that I hear both of you saying, and the thing that both of you have constantly said to me, is that you got to a place where you were absolutely cool with yourself and by yourself. That's hard. That's rough. So talk to us a little bit about that time period. Was it an easy thing for you? Was it difficult? And if it was difficult, what were some of the things that you did to make it a time in your life where you could fully be content?
I think for me, I think in general, humans are very stubborn and we can be offered different outlets for a better life. But if habit wants us to continue on a certain path, your habits are going to get the best of you. And just generally, humans like the spontaneity of the wrongfulness. It just is what it is. And after certain wrongful periods that I had, it took one incident that really smacked me to the ground to where it was like, I can't get any lower for me. Everyone has their low point, and my low point was having an abortion.
Okay.
And that was my low point. And I think after that final low point, going before the Lord and truly being repentant, like for real, and just crying out, so much so that I was saying things like, Lord, reverse this abortion, like I'll do whatever you say, like you can make a way. um and after crying and pleading, I literally felt this like blanket come over me of healing and forgiveness. And it was such a beautiful moment that I've never experienced before, spiritually, supernaturally. And I just felt like he loved me, so like a love that I you only hear about and you read about, but I felt it for the first time. Like, if you love this icky person right now, like I just did the most horrible thing that I could think of that I could ever do. And from there, it was like, how could you not want to honor someone who's just expressed so much love for you? Like, I would never, after having this beautiful relationship with my husband, I would never want to do anything to hurt him. You know what I mean? And so that's how I see my relationship with God, like having that exchange personally and feeling that level of forgiveness. It was I can't, it was unmatched. And yeah, and so having that moment in my memory blocked out anything that I could have potentially tried to, destroy or mess up again. Like, it was just there blocking any area or outlet for me to make little mistakes. Even though
Okay.
God was with me again, but it was a heart posture that I finally got to. And a filling. It was a filling. I gave him that last area of me. He filled it quickly, and my desire became only for him.
Okay.
What was the question again? That was
So
good.
the question is, so the question is, both of you talked about how in your singleness you got to a place where you were so content that you were okay being single. And so my question was, and what I heard Christina saying is, it was a heart posture that she had, a disposition that she had toward God, that changed her perspective, changed her focus, and so changed her desire. And so her desire was for him. And so that made it okay for her to be with herself, by herself, because she was just so full
Mhm.
of God. And so, what if if you were content during that season of your life, what made it easy? What things did you do? How did you
Yeah.
get there?
So God was speaking to me through sermons. Um, First thing I did was went to church because even though I had strayed and, you know, not really been involved in the church, I was raised in the church. Shout out to Quanky Baptist missionary right there on 48, Ronald Rapids, 252, stand up.
Damn.
So I had always been in the church as a child. So I knew, you know, where my safe place was. I knew where my refuge was, right? And so when I got out of jail, I made it a point to go to church that very next service. I think it was a Wednesday service. And the message was about, you know, I don't know, it could have been Pastor Torre, it could have been Devon Franklin, whoever was speaking. Every time a guest came to speak, they were all talking about the same thing. And it was always about surrender and giving God everything. And so as I heard those messages, I realized I had never given God everything. I had never said, okay, I'm going to really try this thing your way. I always said, I'll go to church for a little bit, but I'm still going to be in these streets getting it popping. I'm still going to go and deal with women because that's what I've seen. I know people that are saved that still go out and have their fun. I know grown men that are saved in the church and, excuse me, and still have multiple women. So I know they're going to heaven. So I can do the same thing. I never saw someone living in a way that God has desired, just from a standpoint of obedience and thriving. I thought that those people were squares or old, right? I never saw somebody that was popular, that was cool, that was living a lifestyle that was, you know, pure and honoring God. And so it was tough for me I didn't have anybody to emulate at that point. And God was just showing me that it was going to start with me. And so, you know, you've never tried it my way. Now was the time to try it my way. So I said, all right. So one of those services, our Pastor Torre had given an altar call, and he wanted people to go on a 30-day fast from sex. We live in Hollywood, right? Yeah. A lot of young people, a lot of people don't see anything wrong with it.
I remember that.
And I went to the altar. I said, yep, this is my season. I made it 6 days.
Oh, wow.
Out of 30, which was a big thing for me at the time. Yeah. I made it 6 days. And then, you know, right there the next week, I was there surrendering again. But like every time I surrendered, God showed me that he was real. When I took another step, whether it be my tithes, he showed me financially like that, hey, this is a real thing. So I became a tither. I became faithful in serving. I joined the men's ministry, and I got myself around a group of brothers that were living lives that I was looking to live. So one thing I'll say is the moment I made that step, God started to align people to me that would help shape me in the way that I was growing at that point. And so once I changed my circle, and had people that were really for me, that could really speak to my destiny and not try to bring me away from it and get me back into the clubs and get me back in front of, you know, women and things like that. It became the desire, like Christina said. Like I would prefer being by myself without drinking, just in my apartment, right? Just me, listening to worship music. Like that beginning phase was very different. It was awkward, but once I got over the awkwardness of being by myself on a Friday night and not around people partying, God was able to really communicate some things. And then once I experienced that level of peace, without, you know, the drama and the baggage that comes with, you know, sex before marriage and things like that, I knew I didn't want to sacrifice that and go back to the old ways of living. So.
Wow. Amen. Okay. So we're going to skip a little bit. Want to talk about how you both knew that the other was for you. Because a story that I remember in particular, and Stefan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was when your pastor preached the sermon, 5 Keys to Identifying Your Soulmate. And I think after that sermon, he had an altar call. And he said something to the effect of, if you think that you're with, you know, your soulmate, raise your hand. And I think you asked somebody if Christina had raised her hand.
Yes, so she was on the team. She was up front, like helping pray for people. And the altar call was about people that needed to get rid of toxic relationships. Okay. And after all of that, he said, you know what? And there's some people here that got it right. There's some people here that are actually with the person that God called them to be with. If that's you, raise your hand. And I just raised my hand. And I didn't even pay attention to her. And so once I put my hand down, I turned around, I was like, yo, did that girl over there raise her hand? And the people behind me was like, yeah, she did. I was like, all right, cool.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So was that the moment, or were there moments before then, or was there a moment before that point?
Oh yeah, that was way
Yeah,
before.
that was just confirmation.
That was confirmation, but yeah, that happened way before.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about those moments
You gotta tell her.
Oh wait, the moment where we knew
that you knew he was the one for you.
Yeah. So my all of my confirmations and stories are always very spiritual.
That's okay.
So some people be like, oh. Okay, so we were on our, I don't know, third or fourth date. It was very early, and
Not for me. That's a lot of dates.
no, that was to know that you were the one for me. Anyways, yeah, well, you're interjecting. So we were in his house, and it was one of those nights where we just stayed up all night talking for hours and hours. And remember how I told you I was consulting with the Lord over everything, because I did not want to make the same mistakes that I made with other guys with him.
Right.
And he had shared with me that he was celibate, and I was like, no, but I'm really celibate. He's like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, you're celibate? That was unheard of, a man
Right.
being celibate and for
Right.
real. So there was a guard that immediately went down, and I was just like, okay, God, it's like, do you need any more confirmation? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, and he was just talking about something, and I can't remember what he was talking about, but I was staring at him, and I swear he glowed for like a millisecond, and it was so freaky, but enough to where I wasn't going to show him that I was freaked out what I just saw. He was gold for a millisecond. And I was like, what was that? And God was like, you're seeing my glory on him. And like the glory of the Lord is like my spiritual eyes were open to see God's hand on him. And then in that moment, and this all happened within a second, God showed me his past, his present, like his past being crazy, Stefan drinking, all that stuff, his present of truly surrendering to God, and his future where God was taking him. And I'm telling you, girl, I was like, I would be dumb not to be like, yes, Lord. It was like God showed him in the most successful state that he could ever achieve. And it was like, I want to be a part of that. And I said that to the Lord. And so that was my yes. And it was like, God was honoring him for being faithful, and I was his gift for his faithfulness. And in return, he was my gift for my obedience and faithfulness in such what seems to be a short season. But I mean, what is time to God, really,
Right. Yeah.
You can't just sit there and try to I don't know, because God might take too long. Like, no, you can't think about time the way we think about time when it comes to godly stuff, because it could be tomorrow when your biggest blessing. Who knows? I'm going to take it. That
Amen.
was when I realized that.
Okay. Fawn, what about you?
For me, it was after that moment.
No, yeah, mine was way earlier.
It was we had gone to a coffee shop, and we had probably been dating, I don't know,
like a couple months.
Yeah, 2-3 months. And I had gone inside because she had a dog at the time. Rest in peace, Spirit. Spirit's no longer with us.
Oh,
but she had a dog. She was outside with the dog, and I was inside getting coffee. And I just noticed the manager of the coffee shop storming out of the restaurant and yelling at this homeless man. And so I saw it, but then I saw Christina like talking to the man, and she told the manager like, hey, it's okay, like it's fine. And so when I came outside, I was like, hey, what's going on? Because I could tell she was rattled, and she was like, she started tearing up, and she said, I can literally feel the amount of hate he receives on a daily basis. And so wow. I said, so, for someone to be moved to tears over a stranger, a complete stranger, for her heart to be in that, type of compassionate place, how much more love would she show for her husband and for her children and for her family, right? And so that was probably the first thing. And then God just started confirming even after that, because I had a lot of questions too. Like, we're talking about marriage, and I hadn't even had a girlfriend since like college, right? But he continued, every time I asked a question, he would confirm it. She saw me cry, like, and I don't really be crying like that. I'm from the streets, but she saw me like cry, and
We
it
from
was okay.
Roanoke Rapids.
I know.
There are streets in Roanoke Rapids. Shouts out to Hodgestown. So listen.